What is going on, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I've made money grading Pokemon cards and selling them, and I'm also going to be showing you how I've grown my collection of graded Pokemon cards. So throughout this video, I'm going to be going card by card on a recent PSA submission and showing you the cost that I paid for the cards raw and the grading fee, and then tell you exactly what I sold the cards for. And then by the end of the video, you're going to be able to see whether I made a profit or I made a loss, and also going to be able to see what cards I kept in my collection. So without further ado, let's start the video. So this was a 20 card PSA submission, which I've just recently sold through the last two cards I had from this submission. Now, from the top, the first four cards are actually cards that I am keeping in my collection. So these cards are the Rayquaza V from Evolving Skies, the Empoleon V from Battle Styles, the Blissey V from Chilling Reign, and the Tornadus V from Chilling Reign. Now all these cards are in PSA 10, and together these cards cost me $363. So I'm currently down basically $363 straight off the bat. All these cards I'm keeping because if you have seen my videos and you have seen my Instagram before, I am trying to complete a self-graded PSA 10 Alt-Art set from Sword and Shield. I'm currently halfway through completing that. And as part of grading cards at PSA and selling them is so I can keep these cards basically for as cost neutral as possible. So those cards currently put me at $363 down. Next up, we have a Slowking V PSA 10 from Chilling Reign. I recently sold this card. I had a value of $70.82 for this card, and I sold it for $125, giving me a profit of $54.18. Next, we have a PSA 10 Radiant Eevee. It's the Sword and Shield 230 promo. I have a cost for this card of $40.82, and I sold this card for $55, giving me a profit of $14.18. Next, we have a PSA 10 Radiant Charizard from Pokemon Go. I have a cost for this card of $45.82, and I sold this card for $74 after fees and shipping with a profit of $28.18. That is 62% profit, by the way. Next, we have a PSA 10 Entei V from Crown Zenith in the Galarian Gallery. This card, I have a cost of $45.82, and I sold it for $69.68 with a profit of $23.86. Next, we have PSA 10 Mew from Celebrations. This is I believe, the Legend Maker EX card from memory. I have a cost for this card of $35.82, and I sold it for $48.66. And the profit was $12.84. Next, we have the PSA 10 Gardevoir from Celebrations. I have a cost of $45.82. I sold this card for $60 with a profit of $14.18. After saying a few of these now, I think I should have just rounded it down and rounded it up, because saying 18 cents over and over again is starting to get annoying. Anyway, PSA 10 Birthday Pikachu from Celebrations. I have a cost for this card of $35.42. And I sold it for $54.33 after all the fees and shipping, and the profit for that card is $18.91, which is a 53% profit for anyone watching along at home. Next, we have the PSA 10 Venusaur from Celebrations, which comes with a nice little profit. I had a cost for this card of $37.82. I sold it for $80 with a profit of $42.18, which is 112% profit. So I basically doubled my money. The next card is the PSA 10 Blastoise from Celebrations. Again, this card a really good profit turnover. I had a cost for this card of $39.82. I sold that card also for $80, and I made a profit of $40.18, and that is 101%. Next, we have the Detective Pikachu in a PSA 10. This card, I have a cost basis of $66.57, and I sold it for $74.72, giving me a profit of $8.15. We then have the Detective Pikachu in a PSA 10, one of my favorite Pokemon Center promos. This one I have a cost base of $142.26. I sold this card for $185 after fees and shipping, so the profit was $42.74. Then we have the beautiful PSA 10 Tea Party Pikachu. This card I had a cost basis of $153.04. I sold it for $200, so the profit was $46.96. That's 31% profit. Then I have the Radiant Blastoise in Japanese. So this card was one of the cards I also got in PSA 10. This is the card that got damaged by PSA. So I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this was a perfect 10 out of 10 PSA submission, so all 20 cards came back PSA 10. This card was damaged, but I did end up selling it. So after what PSA paid me out, I actually only lost 82 cents selling this card back when it got back into Australia. So yeah, I lost 82 cents on that card, which is minus 3% overall. The next card on the list is the PSA 10 Radiant Venusaur Japanese. I have a cost base of $30.82. I sold this for $55, so the profit on this card was $24.18. Then we have something a little bit different. We have some One Piece. I have the Yamato Championship 2023 card in a PSA 10. My cost for this was $85.82. I sold this for $97.66 with a profit of $11.84. We then have the Monkey D. Luffy Championship card from 2023, also in a PSA 10. I had a cost basis for this one of $85.82 and I sold it for $90.38, giving me a profit of only $4.56, which was 5% overall after fees and shipping. Now, that is all 20 cards that I had in that PSA submission. And what you'll see from what we just discussed is that overall, I had a cost of $1,356.41. And I sold all these cards for $1,379.43. Now, what that means is I actually had a profit of $23. So don't forget though, I kept 4 of those cards. So the Rayquaza, the Empoleon, the Blissey, and the Tornadus, I've kept those cards for free. I made $23, which is hardly anything, but it's something. And I kept $363 worth of cards in my collection. So if I decided to go and sell those cards at a later stage, obviously the profit on this sub would be much larger. It would probably be somewhere around the $600 mark. But I wanted to keep those cards because I am trying to complete a Sword and Shield Alt Art set. But this is just an example of how since I started collecting cards in 2021, how I've tried to grow my collection for free or grow it cost neutrally is by grading and selling other cards on the side so I can keep that cost down as much as possible. And you can see from this PSA submission, it's a really good example of where I've been able to keep some cards at no cost to me. And this is something that I've continued to do throughout the last few years. It doesn't always look as good as this. Sometimes I'll send too many cards that I want to keep, so obviously it goes into the negative overall, but I have kept those cards at a cheaper price than what it might have cost to just go and buy them raw and grade them and just keep them without supplementing with other cards, if that makes sense. So my advice would be, if you do want to get into doing something like this, is to really research the cards that you are going to buy and the cards you are going to grade, because the market is constantly changing. There's an oversupply, I would say, of graded cards, and not all the cards have the demand of the Umbreon VMAX. The other thing I would consider is understanding what the grader is looking for when you're sending cards to grade. Make sure that you are sending cards that are going to be a PSA 10 or nothing else, because you will suffer if those cards aren't PSA 10s. I'm lucky with this PSA submission that every single card was a PSA 10, so I was potentially always going to make a little bit of margin on all those cards. If it was a PSA 9, it would probably be a different story. I'd be trying to sell cards at break even or even at a loss. But because of how well I did with the submission, I was able to have that flexibility and I was able to reduce my risk of selling these cards so I could keep those other cards in my collection. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions for me, put them in the comments below and I'll see you all next week. Bye.